Hello, everybody. Welcome to Time to Talk Day for the Sunderland Foundation of Light. And we're going to be talking about a new program, a new mental health program called Game of II Halves, which we'll go into a little bit more detail later on. But the first ambassador of that is our guest today. That is Matthew Williams, who's an author, a speaker, and a mental health coach. Hello, Matthew. How are you?
Hello, I'm great. Thanks, Tom. How are you?
Very well, thanks. It's the most important question you can ask someone, isn't it? How are you? Are you okay? Very important questions to ask. Tell us a little bit about your past, because I've said there that you're an author, a speaker, and we're going to be certainly going into the fact that you're a mental health coach today.
Yeah, well, I think the first point is that I never anticipated being any of those things, and they've all come about through, ultimately, my struggles with my mental health. So I also think the first thing, it's just the worst thing to go through. It's horrendous. But on the other side of it, it can teach you things and that can make your life beyond it much better. But anyway, so my background, I always consider myself very, very fortunate in my life, very blessed. I was lucky to work in sport, which I'd been passionate about all my life. No particular traumas or anything that to speak of. And then when I was early 30s, was in 2006, I had my first bout of depression. Obviously I'd heard of what it was and whatever, but had just no idea what was happening to me or how on earth I was gonna get out of it. So like I said, that was 2006. I've had two subsequent battles, experiences, whatever you want to call it. I was someone that I'm not someone that can kind of hide how I feel, and some people are very good at masking it. I'm not, and so a lot of people kind of knew that there was something wrong with me and what have you. And when I got better, I'd be asked questions about it and things, and I was always open about it, and wanting to help people to understand, and that kind of grew really. I went through some things that ultimately led to me starting to write, and I found that very helpful in expressing myself, and also in wanting to share those experiences to help others, and it all just kind of grew from there, getting involved in campaigning, creating my own programs around supporting mental health, and it's just something I'm very, very passionate about. I think if you've been through something like that and know how tough it is, it's like you do really, the thought of anyone else going through that, you want to be able, I do anyway, be able to help if I can.
It can be inspiring that people can feel that low and get through it. It gives a lot of people hope, because so many people are going through hard times and suffering from mental health issues, in particular with depression. And you said there something quite interesting. You said that you're not very good at hiding it. Now, when I hear that, I think that's a good thing, because the worst thing you can do is hide it. The best thing you do is talk. I seem to spend a lot of my life, because I'm a mental health first aider, and one of the biggest message that I give to people is you've got to tell someone. Right? However you want to do it, whether it's someone close to you, whether it's someone that you and none of your friends know, however you do it, it's important to tell someone that you are struggling, because keeping it in is the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a very lonely, isolating thing to go through, in terms of you feel like you're the only, it's such an alien thing, and you feel as though you're the only person that understands it, or you might not even understand it yourself. But and part of the illness is you do tend to kind of socially withdraw, and like you say, it is so important to be able to share it with someone. I was saying, nobody likes to carry a burden alone, but for whatever reasons of stigma and fear, people feel that they have to. And so for me, and part of the importance of the work that the foundation is doing of Time to Talk Day is that normalizing talking about it, so that people don't feel so afraid of opening up to somebody, because it's so important. And this is why I like to make, and obviously everyone's experience is different, but I use the example that my sharing my experiences and talking about them has led, it's obviously helped me in terms of managing it, but also it's led to a lot of positive things happening in my life. And so I like to use that as a kind of counterbalance to the understandable fear people have about, say, revealing. It makes it sound like, it's something you need to keep in, and it really isn't. We're all human, we're all made of the same stuff. We can all struggle, and it's important that we're able to share that with somebody.
It is, and you being the first ambassador of this new mental health program funded by the National Lottery, Game of II Halves, is exactly that. It is a chance to talk about it and spread the word and the importance of talking. But you also mentioned there the word stigma. Is the stigma around mental health, is that changing for the better? I think I've seen a change in the last few years for the better.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's, you see a lot more. I mean, it's social media. There's so much more. You see so much more kind of sharing on there, and people talk about the kind of pros and cons of social media. For me, one of the very good things about it is that you can communicate with, even with strangers, that can turn out to be really helpful, supportive, get a sense of community. There's a lot of things in which social media, I think, has been very beneficial. I think Time to Talk Day and the Time to Change campaign, which I did a lot of work with, I think has been fantastic, because sharing people's personal stories, personal experiences, I think, again, it helps to kind of destigmatize and normalize it, because you can see, well, they're just people like me, like you wouldn't, it's like, none of us walk around with an obvious sign on our head. I mean, I'm confident, chatty, like I think I'm quite funny now and again, and yet, I can be afflicted by, this horrible illness, and so things like that really help. And like you say, I do think those that stigma's being broken down. I think one of the things that now that we need to help more with is we're able to talk about it, but it's then, well, how do we listen, and what do we do when someone confides in us, for instance, that they're struggling? I think people are often scared of saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing, feeling helpless, not knowing what to do with that information. So again, this awareness is really important, so that, not just for the people that are going through it, but for the people around them, and that can provide that support.
And if somebody does come to you or just one of their friends and opens up a bit, what is the best thing to do? If you're the one who someone is telling, what's the best thing for us to do?
Well, personally, I think that encouraging them to seek professional help, medical help, I think is a really important thing. I think that for me, one of the biggest things anyone can do is to care, and to listen, to show you care, to be there. And I've had some, friends, family members that have really, gone above and beyond for me. Now, but I think one of the things that I like to help people understand is that at the time, they could feel pretty helpless, because I wasn't, it takes a lot to overcome and to get through something like that. And people want to help, but you can feel pretty helpless. So, not feeling that you have to be able to solve it, that you can get someone better, but letting that person know that you're there and you care, and that you'll check in, even if, when I was at my worst, I'd get a message and I just couldn't reply to it. Not that I didn't want to, but in the state that I was in, it just, but I remembered those people, that I remembered them checking in, and I wanted to get back to me again, so I could tell them how much I appreciated it. And so, and not putting that pressure on to feel you have to know all the answers to solve it, because it's a, like I say, it's a difficult thing. But being there, listening, caring, it's cliche. It is often the little things, and saying, encouraging them to get the support that ultimately can help them to get through that.
And you said there how you were appreciating the messages. That is very important as well. Checking in, you appreciate it meant a lot to you, even if you couldn't bring yourself to reply. There's no doubt that meant a lot to you, that these people, friends or family, were sending you that text. When I said at the start, the most important words, how are you?
Yeah.
And that's something that we can do if someone is struggling. We can send that text. We can give them that phone call, because it means a lot more. Until somebody tells you how much it means, you don't realize.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And like saying at the time, you know, they might not get anything back to know that they are actually helping. And I mean, one of the things that I remember really struck me, because like I said, I couldn't hide it and people at work noticed. And, you know, the people that get in touch with you sometimes can be surprising. You know, like I worked for a reasonably large organisation during my first illness. And, you know, people that I wouldn't say I knew particularly well, but I'd get messages off because they'd heard what happened. And I think often it's the case that where there's people, because there's a lot of people have experienced it, and this is one of the things that we can feel we're all alone and worry about the stigma and fear and what will happen. But there's a lot of people that have been there and do understand it, and it can be quite surprising. I think some of the people that do come forward, like I said earlier, so, you know, when you've been there, you do have something in you that you want to, you empathize, you want to help others, that, you know, you understand it. And so I got messages of people that, you know, I wouldn't have expected at all. And again, it's then, all right, well, I didn't know you'd struggle with it, and you struggle with it. Again, you kind of feel a little less alone with it. And also there's that thing of seeing that, well, they got through it, and again, and learning from other people. All of that is really powerful. But again, it all starts with feeling able to talk about it.
Yeah, and if you said that some people noticed that you weren't yourself, right? How can we, are there some obvious signs that we can spot for if somebody we know, someone we work with, someone we are friends with, one of our family members, are there some obvious signs that people are struggling?
I think it's I mean, obviously people are very different. Like say, some people, you know, you just are genuinely so good at hiding it. You just, you know, you hear about people that, where it's like, we had no idea. It's, it obviously changes in people's behaviour is obviously something that can kind of make you wonder. And then it's that, like you said, the importance of asking if someone's okay. I mean, for me, the biggest thing is the withdrawing. Just withdrawing, and you know, my friends and family are always close to me, but I kind of shut myself away. You know, turning down invitations to go to things that what I would have usually went to. Potentially, sometimes showing less interest in other people, because it can. I mean, in my case, depression is such a consuming thing, and you know, it kind of impairs your ability to connect and with other people, and you know, showing interest in other people, and you know, work, people's performance can, you know, work, school, where, you know, people's performance can suffer. They're just not doing the things that normally they'd be able to do, you know, making uncharacteristic mistakes, things like that. So yeah, I mean, I think there's some of the, I wouldn't say obvious ones, because again, it's different for different people, but certainly in my case, there were, you know, very obvious differences in how I'd been before to how I was. I mean, for me, the ability to actually smile, and there's that thing, you know, where you can smile with your mouth and not with your eyes, and you know, it's that change in someone's demeanor, the way that they are just in themselves.
Yeah, I think so. Sometimes having done the course and becoming a mental health first aid, there's certain things that I've found just since doing this. Best thing I ever did this course, because although I've never I've never suffered from depression, but people close to me have. So I learned that the hard way about depression, and was intent on finding out more about it. Best thing I did, because I've see the world in a different way. It also made me a lot happier in myself. I've always been quite a happy person, but I ended up looking at life in a different way. But something that I've noticed is if people are quieter than usual, all right, but then I'm about to contradict that, because if you are in these days, you can be in about 10 different WhatsApp groups.
Yeah.
And if somebody is constantly messaging, piping up all the time, and then after a week or so, you think, actually, I've not heard from them for a while.
Yeah.
They haven't replied to anything. They haven't posted anything. I always think that's quite a good time to check up. Hopefully there's nothing wrong whatsoever. They've just been mega busy or something, or they might have gone on holiday and decided to leave their phone in the safe, which is actually, for mental health reasons, I actually think that's a good thing to do every now and again, actually.
Absolutely.
Avoid your phone when you can. But then on the flip side, if someone is usually really quiet in a WhatsApp group and is suddenly just everywhere, it's kind of another reason, you think, oh, well, if they're being loud and doing this, that, and the other, you think, oh, they must be all right, but not necessarily if that's character. If anyone's acting a bit different, I've noticed that might be a good time to check in on them. But obviously, hopefully, there's nothing wrong whatsoever. But that is something, and there's a trigger for if you're spotting other people, that there's something that maybe, that is the time to check in. But also a point is, there's never a wrong time to check in, is there?
Absolutely.
How can it harm to just give someone a message?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, one of the campaigns I was involved with Time to Change that I think was a fantastic campaign was called Ask Twice. And this thing that, it's almost a default response when someone checks in, we say we're all right. And I mean, from, where I'm in Middlesbrough, it's a form of greeting in itself. You say all right, and you respond by saying, all right. You're not actually revealing anything about whether you actually are all right or not. So, but are you sure? Even it's just, well, I'm not, she's being a bit quiet. Are you sure? Is there anything you'd like, have a chat about? Just however it is, it doesn't have to be you don't have to make a big song and dance about it. But like you say, it's just kind of that, are you all right, mate? And again, that's showing that you care. And I think it's really important, and again, the importance of talking is creating an environment where people feel they have permission to talk. You can't make someone talk, but in my experience, when people know that they're not going to be judged, they're not going to be thought less of, then they will open up, and they'll, often, I'm not wanting to be overly simplistic about it, but by and large, if people feel able to talk, we don't want to carry that burden alone. We want to feel we can share with somebody. Problem is often that we just don't know that we can. So, it's really important.
This program that you are an ambassador for, the Game of II Halves, it's brilliant. I'm going to go through some of the things that it's involved with in a moment, but it's an important thing for me is always to kind of, and you talked about it at the start, is to kind of be a signpost to say there is help available here, here, and here, and we know where that help is available. And with this Game of II Halves, that is part of it, because we're saying that there's help here. You can come here to learn out more, and that signposting is very important from our point of view as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the idea of like community programs, and obviously, in terms of a community profile, community presence, kind of community good. I mean, football club, it's obviously a massive part of any town or city. And, to be able to kind of get those messages out, provide that support, provide that signposting, a lot of, it reaches a lot of people that wouldn't potentially otherwise, be aware of these kind of issues. And I know that there's been a good partnership between Mind and the AFL around raising awareness, and obviously this, I mean, this is just a fantastic project and program, and it's that, the different ways we go out and reach people, because we tend to think of obviously the medical approaches to things that we need to do to help, but actually, it can be very hard for someone to go to the doctors and to ask for help. There's lots of reasons why people struggle with that. So, community interventions and community programs are really important for that reason, but also because they can do so much good. And for me, they're absolutely essential. There's certain things we can do, whether it be counselling, whether it be, seeking medication, but there's so many other things about, connecting with people, physical activity, being able to share our experiences, being able to, plan for a hopeful future, all these different things that, community partners and again, like I said, there aren't any bigger than football clubs, can really make a big difference in reaching people and supporting people that, in a lot of cases wouldn't otherwise get help.
I should just point out this Game of II Halves, for anyone who's kind of looking at it, it's the 2 is the Roman numerals, kind of like the number 11, which also is the pause button. If you press pause on your TV or something, it's those, those 2 Roman numerals for 2. How important is it to pause and look at how things in your life are going, and maybe be able to even take a break? And when I say take a break, and so I mean some time for yourself. I don't mean you have to have an expensive holiday by a beach somewhere. Some time for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important. I have to say as well. I mean, I think it's really clever that say that and this is the thing in terms of getting messages across to people, things like that. They're clever, relatable. There's just so much about it that I think works really, really well. And that pause, it really is important, and that recognition of when we really need to look after and take care of ourselves. And sometimes, a lot of people that do a lot for other people and feel their role is to support and help others, and might be a particular role within a family, and can find it difficult then to admit that they're struggling and they need help. And I know as a man, one of the things that I found was I was pushing myself, and particularly with regards to work, for months, really, the first time I was ill, I had needed to be off work for months, and I didn't. I pushed myself every day, and I shouldn't have done. And being able to take the time to do what you need to do to get yourself well is just so important. And it's, and people have this, some people, there's this, again, stigma, misconception about kind of being weak but actually, the strength it takes to endure that and to keep going, it is just enormous. And we need to take care and rest and look after ourselves. And that point of the pause, I mean, the thing I've found, it can really teach you things about yourself, about the life you're living, about your goals, your ambitions, wherever it is for you, but that can make what comes after the pause actually a lot better for having had that experience. Although it's the worst experience in the world when you're going through it, what you do in that pause time, that it can really serve you well in I guess the next half.
Well, this Game of II Halves, I've got some more information here about the whole thing, and we'll kind of break it down. And so there's a few things that jump out. So as I'm going through it, I'll ask you a question about it. I said there, Game of II Halves. Obviously, that's a reference to the footballing roots. Of course, this is from the Sunderland Foundation of Light. I've mentioned the pause button as well, which you've explained really well there, how important that is. It's delivered in Sunderland, South Tyneside and Northumberland. But this next bit, Matthew, is quite interesting. The target audience is for men aged between 25 and 69, so broad age group there, and women aged between 41 and 50. Now, that broader age group for men, it tells its own story, doesn't it? I do done Movember the last couple of years.
Oh yeah.
Because quite frankly, we are not very good at this, men, at talking. We are not as good at opening up. There's a lot of things that women are better than men at, most things in fact, and opening up is one of that we can add to that long list. And the point of me doing Movember is to spread the word, to say to men, please talk to each other. Because I do. You can do it for lots of different reasons. Movember, there's prostate cancer and other things, but for me, it's very much for men's mental health. And that is quite interesting. Just that target audience, the ages there, tells its own story.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's talk about in terms of suicide statistics. I mean, young men, it's the biggest killer of young. I think is it under 45 is suicide, and many of those won't have sought help. You know, that the fact that things get that bad and haven't felt able or known how to seek help. And so it's so important that, you know, that is kind of looked at and addressed. And one of the things I'm aware of through the work I did with Time to Change is how in terms of targeting men and messages for men, so we need beating around the head with it almost. We have to be very specific. Hey, look, we're talking to you. Listen, much more so than there was a campaign I was involved with that was focused entirely on men. You know, some people said, well, is that because obviously, you know, the women struggle as well. Women are more likely to struggle with the mental health, whereas men are less likely to get help, more likely for it to, you know, sadly end in them taking their own lives. And saying that, again, men really need kind of the messaging being very direct and specific to even have a chance of registering with them, which I thought was really interesting. But it is that there's so many, and I did a fascinating course that looked at kind of our experiences and our, you know, the things we learned growing up as men. And we asked questions like, you know, do you ever remember your dad being off work or being ill? And you didn't imagine, you know, when I grew up, you didn't, you know, I made a joke, you know, I don't remember my dad being off his had a, you know, after a particularly heavy day trip, you know, but, you know, the man of the house got on with it and whatever. And, you know, whereas I never, you know, I wouldn't have said I was ever the kind of, you know, traditional, you know, male stereotype, I guess. You've soaked all of that up, and you don't even realize sometimes, but it's all there within you. Again, this thing about, you know, not wanting to cry, and again, football's a great example. When we say about men don't do emotion, you know, go to the foundation, the Stadium of Light, where I was going to say when Sunderland are getting a beat, but even when they win, you know, you will see emotion. You can cry when your team gets relegated, or when you win something, you know. But hey, mate, I'm struggling. You know, it's so again, football is a fantastic tool in being able to highlight these things and again to break down some of these stereotypes. And again, what better tool for men of that age group than football?
Exactly. That's why this is such a great initiative, a great program, the Game of II Halves, and it aims to recruit 250 ambassadors from workplaces, grassroots football clubs, Sunderland fan groups as well. You got the Branch Liaison Council, who I've done some stuff with before, the Red and White Army as well. And the ambassadors, like we were saying earlier, they're going to be central to sharing messages and tactics to support their colleagues, teammates, friends, family, fellow fans, to promote good mental health and suicide prevention messages, which is exactly what we're doing here today. And interesting there, you also said the term take your own life, because, and this is the journalist side of me coming out. I'm sick of having to ring my bosses when I hear on Sky Sports News, someone says, oh, such and such committed suicide. It hasn't been a crime. Suicide hasn't been a crime for, well, tens of years, maybe even over 100 years. And that wording is a negative wording, isn't it? Because that sounds like feeling suicidal is something that you should, well, it's saying it's a crime, but it's not a crime.
I mean, like, you know, in your field of work, obviously you're more aware than anybody, you know, that how important language is. And there's I'm all, going back to this idea about, you know, people listening, feeling able to talk. There is that thing where people are scared of saying the wrong thing. And I always say, well, you know, you're not looking to castigate someone for not realizing. And again, if someone's coming from a place of care, then, you know, but understanding the importance of language and, like you said, the implications and where it comes from is really important, because it changes. It's really important in changing part of the again how it's viewed within society. And you know, it's language comes heavily loaded with you know, inference, with you know, hidden meaning. And it's I think, yeah, it's, I mean, you know, you wouldn't, it's one of the things you wouldn't automatically know about. So again, it's a mistake that's easy to make. But once you understand the reason, you know, why that is a phrase that, you know, we need to look for better things to be able to describe it. Again, it all goes towards this, you know, the difference in how it's viewed socially. You know, it's not like, you know, like you say, the past where it's a crime, you know, the way it was dealt with was very different. The way people were struggling with their mental health were viewed very differently, you know, and that's a very important evolution of our kind of attitudes.
It is. I'm just going to finish by a few final points from the Game of Two Halves program. The ambassadors will receive a monthly workshop, either virtually, or face-to-face, on topics appropriate to the role, and they'll receive kit to make them identifiable, like a hoodie or a scarf. You know, that's again that signposting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Saying I'm here. Resources, their own social media group, a pair of match day tickets. All right, so that's a well, not necessarily a positive, actually. Yeah.
I'll let you say that.
Yeah, no, yeah. And the opportunity to undertake a formal mental health qualification, which is something I'm very passionate about, because I tell you now,
yeah.
It's the best thing I ever did. Work put me through it as well. Work kindly paid for me to do it, and the best thing I ever did. But just to end, Matthew, because you've been absolutely brilliant here, really, really helpful to a lot of people. Just how proud are you to be part of this Game of Two Halves campaign?
Oh, that's brilliant. I mean, it's, you know, I kind of joke sometimes, and we said at the start, and you know, the things that I do now, you know, it's never something, you know, you set out to do as a child. You know, like I want to, you know, really struggle with my mental health, and then go and, you know, but it just hides, you know, that, you know, that when you kind of never know what's around the corner. And again, if you're going through a bad time, you know, you don't know how you're going to look back and see that in years to come, and what can come out of it. You know, being part of a campaign like this, for me, it's that just means so much, to be able to you know, to feel that all of, you know, the terrible days that I had can make a positive difference to people. And the other things, like, you know, we're a social species, community connection's really important to us. And things like, I mean, you're talking about there that, you know, things like, you know, the kit being identified as an ambassador, you know, that sense of community. And again, for an illness or mental, you know, health, as, you know, potentially a group of illnesses that can really isolate you, then that community is so powerful. And peer support, and again, you know, being inspired by other people's life experience, it's such a powerful thing. And you know, the fact that you can identify as having struggled with your mental health and be proud because you're wearing a nice bit of kit, you know, it's like, you know, they're all kind of little things, but when you think about it, compared to where we were, say, 20 years ago, you know, it's massive. It's massive, and it's fantastic.
It is. Matthew, thank you very much indeed for your time. Remember, it is Time to Talk Day, so do exactly that.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you.